So welcome back to AME's facilitated session where mentorship and mastery unite to fuel your success in medicine. I'm joined by my co-host and expert facilitator, Dr. David Leon Taylor.
And welcome back.
What's going on, DT?
Yeah.
And I am your co-host and moderator, Dr. Darren Wayne Jackson II. And so today we're going to jump into our season finale. All right.
Yes.
And as we discussed before, it's we're going to cover two parts because we are discussing the USMLE Step 2 CK. So that is the new standard.
Yes.
But then we also will transition over into the closer, the exit strategy, which is your ERAS and match, right?
That's right. And that's the electronic residency application service, the
Right.
ERAS. Okay.
Right. So we've gone through deep dives, MCAT, talked about wellness and blueprint, learning how to learning strategy. We did the same thing for step 1, right? Even in this very, season that we're in right now. So step 2, and on trend with discussing those differences, because that gives our student learners a nidus point, right? It gives us a stuff to start to consider, right? And with that being said, we talked in the previous episode that step 1 has now been transitioned to pass fail. Now, the reason why I named it the new standard is because step 2, not step 2 CK, not pass fail. What did that change do? And what did making step 1 pass fail and keeping step 2 CK, just the regular, standard of, grading, what was that change? What did that change do?
So the goal, and there was a lot of back and forth on this, as you know, but the goal in having step 1, that's right. Well, students,
I'm behind this.
right.
You know.
That's right. Medical education, it was a lot with the National Board of Medical Examiners, a lot of surveying program directors, medical educators, etc. But the goal for step 1 and going past fail was to take away, in essence, the significant competition for a high step 1 score, which was associated with a competitive residency selection. And in doing so, because a lot of medical student scholars were talking about burnout and other types of stress to get ready for step 1, and the goal was really to be able to demonstrate excellent basic science mastery to solve clinical problems. So the pass-fail would take away this performance-based and hopefully take it back to competency-based.
Gotcha.
And for the most part, that worked. As always, there may be an unintended consequence, which was now a lot of program directors do place significant emphasis on the step 2 CK score.
Yeah, because I was going to say, doesn't it just move the competitiveness?
That's right,
now,
which is
move
a
to step 2?
numeric score. And so in essence, that's what has happened. Of course, CK stands for clinical knowledge. And this exam, as a point of difference, focuses on our ability to diagnose and to manage patients. It's mostly diagnosis and early management. That's step 2 CK. And so remember, we referenced that the diagnoses will be more complex and granular because now you're moving toward the end of your undergraduate medical education. So yes, there's a lot of emphasis on this score as a indicator of competence, of your ability to, in essence, diagnose patients and manage them alongside the clerkship evaluations that we referenced in the previous episode. What is being said about you from observations, those two now will determine interview consideration for residency.
So what's some of the differences that we're looking at? Because for step 1, we had that 6 to 8 week dedicated period. Step 2, in terms of timing, in terms of how this now associates with when you're submitting your ERAS and application for the match for residency, where does this how does this difference land in the scheme of step 2 CK now from that standpoint of timing?
Very good point. So Depending on the particular medical school's curriculum, because there have been a lot of changes now, most scholars will complete their third year of clinical education by usually May of that third year of clinical experience. So June, July, and August, there's an opportunity to engage in clinical electives if desired, and also to prepare for the Step 2 CK. And this is important because the electronic residency application service, right? It's going to be opening in May, ERAS, but applications can be submitted on September the 1st. And so most scholars are attempting to make sure that their Step 2 CK score, which is a requirement not only for licensure, but for graduation from medical school, that score is available by September 1. Because they know the program directors are looking for it, right? You remember that.
Yeah.
So if you look at the timing, as you emphasize, most scholars are attempting to complete their Step 2 CK exam no later than mid-July to assure that the score is back by mid-August. It's approximately 4 weeks to get a score, but sometimes it's delayed. This is why they leave that extra buffer of time, because they want the score to be available by September the 1st. So in terms of preparation, most scholars, typically for Step 2 CK, need only 4 to 6 weeks, not the 6 to 8 weeks. Based on the nature of their clinical experiences, and remember they've been taking individual clerkship exams. The clerkship exams are just a small part of Step 2 CK. Imagine just taking all the clerkship exams and now putting them all into the Step 2 CK, so you get the entire clinical experience.
Yeah.
And so that allows the scholars then to be reasonably prepared already. And so less preparation time is needed, usually 4 to 6 weeks, which means they're usually preparing for Step 2 CK in late May and June, taking it, as we said, in early to mid-July latest, so that it's back by mid-August. And some will take it in an earlier timeline. For example, they may take it in early June, so it's back by July.
So, you referenced the September 1st date, and I remember, I remember that the countdown. Typically, the word and the ethos is that fourth year is the funnest, most laid back year. I'm not
stressful.
Yeah, it's stressful because the match and all that goes into it, the timing and just all that you need to have done at different benchmarks throughout that entire year, because it feels like a marathon, from that July to that September 1st, where you have to get that score in, because it just then later on, and we'll talk about the FSMB, where these things come into place. But it can really be overwhelming for a lot of students, and I think that that's something that's underscored, because for the majority of what we hear is, oh, well, fourth year is going to be the fun year, it's a chill year, but it's a lot to do and it's a lot to consider. So when you bring up that September 1st date, let me give you a scenario. I'm the late student. I don't have a score. September 1st, or let's just say I'm I'm in the August, part of, mid-August, and practice exam scores are not, giving out, what I would feel comfortable going into day of and performing to pass Step 2 by that September 1st date. What is your recommendation for our students about that late, that late person that's going to either not have the score by September 1st or may not be in a good position to even pass by September?
Well, it's always important to have realistic self-appraisal. if we make a misstep and take the exam before we are ready, now we have a score that either is not competitive or hopefully, we hope this is not the case, it's not a passing score. But either one of those two scenarios are not good, but certainly not a passing score is worse. And then you're still going to be delayed with your application if it's not a passing score.
Right.
So informed, realistic self-appraisal and working again with your dean for student affairs and your medical education learning specialist is going to be key if one has to delay the exam because of preparation, not ready, or for some other reason, because there's always a way to make adjustments to ensure that you still have a reasonable opportunity for competitive consideration in the residency, right? And so this discussion, as you said, and almost linking Step 2 CK to a timeline for match is so important,
Right.
because it is a key anchor. And we're going to talk about some of the other aspects of the application, but this is a key anchor. So applying the blueprint that we talked about in season 3 for Step 2 CK, we know that's going to be on point. Having your learning plan, we know that's going to be on point. Understanding this timeline now of 4 to 6 weeks and how it leads into your ERAS application component is critical. And if you're going to be off in that timeline, seeking advising is better than making a misstep and taking the exam before you're ready, because we can make adjustments. Do not get pulled into, oh, if I don't get it in, I won't get any interviews. We worked with literally hundreds of students who did not have a Step 2 CK score available by that September timeline, and those students matched. Is it optimal? No. Is it workable? Absolutely yes.
And I think that that's important to know, because it's not the end of the world. I was one of those students. I did not have a score by September 1st, right? So, and you still match, so again, it's not the most optimal position, but communicating and being in communication with your academic advisor, your mentors, or whoever it is that can give you some, good tips to navigate that, is a very vital thing to have, going into this fourth year ERAS match, marathon that you will essentially be taking on. So that brings us into segment 2. That was a good primer, because segment 2 talks about the exit strategy, right? The ERAS and the match, right? So going back to that discussion about timeline, I kind of got a sense of, you have this category of being proactive versus reactive, right?
That's right.
And in that ERAS and match scenario, I just want you to give me a few more tidbits about, timelines, in terms of there's this thing called a token, just give me some checklist things that is, that students may not know about, that's coming up for them in the fourth year, because, they played around with the idea of a token. And there's, I guess there's different ways or different things that the token can represent.
That is correct.
And so just give us a little bit of rundown about what all those things, and,
the administrative action steps to prepare for your residency match process. So first, each medical student has to go through an eligibility process at the respective medical school, whether it's U.S. medical school or international medical school, that allows you to be eligible to participate in the match. And that's based on curricular criteria for graduation. If you meet those criteria as determined by your school, the school interfaces with the ERAS team to provide you what's called a secure registration ticket or token. So the token refers to secure registration instructions that are only provided to scholars who are eligible to actually participate in the match. This registration ticket or token allows you to set up a My ERAS account, which will be the portal through which you will now complete your ERAS application. Now, there are certain specialties to which that you may be applying that may have other criteria and timeline and other application materials you may submit that may require an additional token.
Right. Because you can have
And
early
again,
match.
that's correct. And again, that token is nothing more than a specialized registration ticket based on the type of specialty you have an interest. But everyone gets a core token, which allows you to set up an account. And if you're going to be early match, a couples match, certain specialties of an early match time, couples match, military match, there may be additional tokens. So just keep that in mind. That's a very straightforward process. So your goal as a medical student is to make sure you're working with your dean for medical education, your dean for student affairs, and the office of the registrar to make sure everything that's required of you for graduation has been met. Because you're going to be receiving communication from your school saying you need to complete 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to meet graduation requirements. That's going to be tied directly to your ability to participate in the ERAS application process.
There's just so many little things that you have to do in that fourth year. It's a lot of emails back and forth between administration and you. There's a lot of trips to
And
the
you need to respond to them.
Yes,
that's correct.
A lot of trips to
timely
registrar's office, getting things signed off and having to like physically mail stuff off to the places. So there was a lot of that during fourth year. And so, just thinking from having a business mind, in business, we talk about pain points, right?
Yes.
What is the pain point of that process, of the ERAS process? Especially in reference to the timeline, because all that I'm hearing is that you just need to know, you better know what's going on. Correct. And I remember going into fourth year feeling very overwhelmed because it was so many different aspects of things that we had to do to finalize, fourth year. You spend a lot of time talking to classmates because you want to make sure you don't miss anything, and so, from a timeline perspective, what is the pain point?
Well, the pain point is always who to listen to. And this is the challenge, quite frankly, with our peer context, because we rather listen to our peers than the administration that's giving you the step-by-step process. The rules you need to follow, because everyone wants to take shortcuts. So, hey, just tell me what to do. I don't want to read all the stuff that the university is sending me.
Right. Who wants
to read
that much? Who wants to read all those emails?
As administrator for over 35 years and dean for student learning, I'm saying to all the medical student scholars, you need to read the information that the school provides to you way in advance. You receive it at your senior year orientation. You're receiving it in advance of senior orientation, usually within 2 weeks before the end of your third year. The university is sending you information regarding what's going to be happening in your senior year and how to get ready for the match. You need to read it. You need to follow it. You don't need to ask Dr. Jackson. You don't need to ask an external mentor. You need to follow what the school asks you to do. Now, when you do that, you will then know I need to have a series of recommendations uploaded to the registrar's office by this date. And they're going to tell you that way in advance, which means you can approach your letter writers 3 weeks before that time frame, because that's one competency. There will be other documents you'll need to sign off on. Make your own checklist. The university is telling you exactly what it is, and do it. When they say you've done that, and you're going to receive an email from My ERAS saying set your account, look for that email. If you haven't received it in the time frame they told you, follow up.
Follow up.
You can't use the excuse I was on an away elective that's really important to me to get ready for match. Well, guess what? You don't even have a portal yet access. So that away elective is not going to help you. That's the pain point. The pain point is not following the instructions that are provided in a timely manner versus running after your peers to try to catch up because you're focused on other things. I just got to tell you that's straight talk.
Well, yeah,
talk,
no, I know,
right?
because you don't want to end up like me opening up an email at some point in the year and like, what is FSMB? Hold on, we have to register for something else outside of ERAS, and then going crazy because I'm like, hold on, what else did I miss?
Exactly.
You know, and so yes, read it. Don't skim. Read, because there are important timelines. You know, and it's one thing if you getting a particular thing done is all up to you. You know, then someone might be compelled to play around with the time and wait to the last minute. But we're talking about, you know, needing other people to do certain things, then to also get that stuff in on time.
That is correct. So that's an additional time consideration.
Right.
And if now you're reading the email that was sent out 4 weeks ago today, well, and recommendations are due to the registrar by next Monday.
Right.
And you're going to go to your clinical faculty and say, can you write this for me in 2 days? They may not be available to do that, right? Which is what you're talking about. So the goal, therefore, would be is that, especially as a rising fourth-year medical student, I'm putting on my own personal checklist. I can, first of all, go to my university website, and there's always information posted on, these are the steps you're going to need for graduation. These are the steps you're going to need to prepare for match. I should download that and I should start following that, because I can do that. I can do that mid-year. It's already on the website mid-year in my third year, because I could be asking for recommendations way in advance, because that's a key point. You want to get the recommendations in.
Yeah.
I could be working on aspects of my ERAS application before the portal opens up, because that information is available through the AAMC, which of course is partnering with the residency match process that tells you every section of the application. So you could be filling it out before you even had the portal and saving it in a document, so that when it comes time for the portal to open,
Copy and
paste, right? And so wash, rinse, and repeat. So those things can be done in advance for scholars who want to be proactive versus reactive. I don't have to wait for my school to send it out. But by the time the school sends it out, I already know what's going on.
Right.
Because I've done the research on my school website and on the AAMC website. Both of those two sources will give me everything I need to know. Yes, I love my peers, but I should be talking to my peers about, hey, did you interview at this institution? What was it like? They can help me with that.
Right.
But they can't help me fill out my ERAS application. They can't help me find the token.
Right. Now,
registration.
So, you know, we have great faith that our scholars, viewers, you know, are on top. You know,
that's why they're here.
They're not going to skim the email. They're going to read the email.
That's why they're in FS.
Through. Yes. But that's one benchmark is, you know, the portal, navigating the application in the different timelines. But now we fast forward. Now we've done our rank list, and we'll go on a little bit more about stuff that goes into that. But this leads us to segment 3, which is the holistic interview, right?
Yes.
Or just the interview, but I'm saying holistic because you're starting to hear that more now. As an administrator, what is this business about holistic review? Because I'll tell you, some students think it's a scam. You know, if you go on, you know, TikTok, you're looking at different, like Reddit, a student doctor, you know, people don't necessarily trust that the holistic review, because it's anti what we've always been taught and what's been taught to us as medical trainees.
It's the numbers.
It's the numbers, the grades, and that's what gets you in. Exactly. So now that step 1 has been pass fail, where now we've already discussed that the step 2 CK is the now standard. But what does this interview look like, and the focus now on the holistic review? Why are universities or programs starting to take that approach of doing a holistic review or interview?
And the way to think about it is when you are extended an interview, it means you are already acceptable academically. Let me say that again. When you are extended an interview, it means you are already acceptable with respect to your grades and your standardized test scores, and even with respect to your clinical observations, right? Because we can see those notes, right, from your clinical engagement. It means you are already acceptable or we would not be interviewing you.
Right.
So this interview now is saying, if I have 10 available residency slots, I want to get the best fit. All 10 of these people have excellent clinical skills. All 10 of these scholars have excellent standardized test scores, or scores that we find acceptable. Some are higher, some are mid-range, but we find those scores acceptable. We find their grades acceptable. We find their clinical observations acceptable. We find their recommendations acceptable. So what are we looking for? We are looking for fit. F-I-T. What are your professional and personal characteristics that align with our professional goals for our residency trainees?
So this is where that professional identity kind of
That's
comes
where it
into
comes
place.
back again. And we talked about this in the previous FS. The authentic component of your professional identity will come through in the application, and if you're granted an interview, we'll see if it's real.
Right.
Because in the ERAS application, there are specific sections that give you an opportunity to talk about your training location preferences, your professional goals, your family engagement, other important social, faith tradition, other factors that are important to you, your educational goals, research goals. All of that is there to get a sense of how do you, the totality of you now, fit with what we offer.
So it's like those step 1 and step 2 scores are like the numeric cut, whereas though the interview is like the human cut.
That's correct.
We're assessing the fit. We're assessing how that professional identity of the scholar who's applying to the program aligns with the program and its morals, ethics, and how it's grounding itself in the community.
Exactly.
Because, even some programs, while they're accepting for everybody, but if you have a great interest in remaining in the city that, that program is,
yes,
and you have all of the other things and the fit is good personally wise, identity wise, you can fare really well, in terms of, their ranking of you to go to that program.
Exactly.
Like, I want to be in Baltimore. I want to be in DC. You've demonstrated through your application your ties to Baltimore or DC.
Exactly. What is it that links you to that community? You are spot on,
right?
Because that's the community that residency program serves.
Right.
And they know you'll be vested in it.
Right.
In fact, if you're looking to stay in that community, they may one day be able to recruit you as faculty.
Exactly.
That's how they're looking at the big picture. Because remember, I have 200, 250 applications for 10 slots. So why wouldn't I want to optimize the best fit by looking beyond your scores so I can get a holistic picture of who you really are?
So it's interesting because, and this is going to bring us into segment 4, the algorithm and the rank list, right? Because
very important.
It's always asked, what is, and I'll ask you, what is a student's, most highest yield criteria for choosing a program?
Most scholars will say, hey, if my step 2 CK score is in the range of that particular program, I'll rank them high because I really want to match. I want a job. And that solely on that factor only will be the biggest mistake that scholar could make, because there may be other factors that are important to them that are not available in that particular program.
You want to know what my factor was?
Yes, let's hear it.
my number one thing was location, geographical location. And I feel like from the conversation with many of my classmates, that was their thing too. You know, I want to go back home. I'm going back to the West Coast. You know, while the East Coast was well and nice for the past 4 years, I want the weather of, California. And so geographical location, also speaks to, that couples match, where, my
Listen
partner.
to what you're doing. You're linking it, though, to a meaningful purpose.
Right.
So we're looking for that. If someone says, I am basing my rank list or my top schools that I want to do a residency based on geographic region, why? Is it linked to a connection to community because you have a community engagement program that you want to continue to participate in as the program allows it? Is it linked to family? Is it linked to a couples match, or your spouse is there? What is it tied to the community? If you say my number one reason is for research, does this program offer a research track? And is it in a discipline for which you actually have research experience as well? And there's key alignment.
So it has to be aligned.
That's right. There has to be alignment. It just can't be for the sake of research. So this is why on the front end, when you're filling out your My ERAS application, due diligence and reflective granularity, language. Granularity gives details. Reflective granularity gives you context as to why these details are important.
Right.
And that's what we're looking for, to understand the why. And so, as we said at the beginning, if we're only mapping based on, I want to match, so if my step 2 CK score aligns, that should be good enough for me, you may be missing out on a whole range of important areas. Right. Well, I had some problems and I just don't think I'm going to match, so I'll just choose these schools because they look safe. Not a good enough reason, because you may in fact match there, and now you're saying you're unhappy. Training is hard enough.
It is.
Medical training is hard enough. And so we should consider 5 factors, up to 5 factors that allow you to truly do a good deep dive into what programs should I be considering. And if you were thinking of those 5 factors, DJ, what would you consider might be 5 factors? It may not be the same for everybody, but what might be 5 factors of consideration?
So on the other side of the match, number one still is location, geographical location. 2, I would say schedule. So what is the call schedule like? You better know that. What is the call schedule like, and what's the expectations? Another thing, again, is my alignment with the program and their, my alignment with the program. So if there's a program who, is emphasizes like research, someone who may not be as interested in like a clinical or, bench research or something like that, that might be something that can draw a person away. And, 2 more, I wouldn't say salary, because the differences in salary are kind of very minute. It's a standard, intern, and graded up. But I would say salary, and just another big thing is just the resident experience. Just talking to some of the residents that's already there. What is the culture at that program? What is the culture of the hospital?
Right.
What's the culture of the attendings? How important is teaching to them? Like, what type of ways do they teach? Because fit is very important. It's a very big thing, because you can be looking at a program and say, oh, my step 2 CK scores will get me into this prestigious program. And, you get to the program, like you said, and you better hope that the prestige can carry you through all of those years of training. Because if you find yourself at a program and the culture is completely off from what you're, what you're used to, or what, it makes you feel safe and secure, like you're in a safe and secure learning environment. If there's, challenges around, your rotations in your program, are they far away from the main campus, or, things like that. There's so many different things that you would consider. But, definitely that fit in terms of culture is a big thing.
And so you hit on two important ones that a lot of scholars have shared with me when we're advising around selecting residency programs. And one, the culture is important because they wanted to feel there's an opportunity to be nurtured.
Right.
Is it truly a teaching environment, or is it more of do as I say?
The academic air.
That's right. Is it truly an opportunity to exchange and have collaboration, or is it again more do as I say? An equally important component was some scholars are very proactive about their wellness, and they want to see, is there intentionality of wellness built in the residency program? Because medical training, now in the graduate medical education context, is already stressful by design. It is a stressful profession. You can't get around it. And so I have worked with scholars who say, I like this program because they have a required every second Thursday off, no exceptions, none. And you actually sign a contract that you will not enter the hospital because you will not be paged, and there should be no reason for you to be there, because that's how seriously they take their wellness. They also had embedded counselors and so on and so forth. So they really liked that about the program. I've had scholars talk to me about also community engagement, because they were interested in advocacy opportunities. And they looked at programs that actually had 2-week electives in the residency to do community advocacy specifically. And so they are mapping their identity with the program, right? Aspects that are important. Is it wellness? Is it community engagement and advocacy? What is it besides? Yes, location could be a factor too as well, right? Autonomy. What level of autonomy is given in the program? Some programs have a high degree of autonomy very early on.
Right.
And with autonomy comes more responsibility.
And that might
right?
not be good for some.
That may not be good for some. Exactly. Some want more support.
Right.
And so this is the level of focus we're talking about when we're saying, spend some time actually thinking about what are 5 important factors that are important to you. Use those to initially set up a list of 20 to 25 schools. And then within those 5 factors, and you have your 20 and 25 schools, of those 5, which 2 are the most important to you? Now you're making it even more structured. You say, well, I want all 5, but which 2 of the 5 are now more important? And see, based on that, it's a sub-ranking of those same 20, 25 schools. And now you begin to see which ones, at least from that analysis, start the process. But then there has to be the human engagement part, talking with the residents, so on and so forth, as you noted.
So you said, 20, 25 schools, and that's also a point of consideration during this time, because that takes also self-appraisal and assessment. How many schools I should be applying for, because that dictates how much money you're going to spend, right?
That's right.
So that brings us to our closing segment of the season and this episode and season finale, which is the cost, right?
Yes.
So when we talk about applying for the match, it's an investment. I think now most of the interviews are still virtual, but I remember when I was going through the process, it had just stopped being, in person. So I'm thinking about the person who has a lot of schools. Let's just keep it at 20, 25. And let's just say you get 15, 18 interviews, right? Is the person, should they be going to all of these interviews because it costs us travel if all the programs are in different parts of the country. And so just give us some tips about, this investment piece, like the investment, the application fees, the travel, and just, the difference in the amount of programs to consider when applying. Do you have this shotgun approach where you're applying just in the dark, or are you going to be like a sniper and just be very intentional? Is that a smart tactic to, just pick, a truncated list of schools and just, put your energy there, or just have a wide, broad range of schools that you're applying for and just hoping to match?
Well, this is where we start with, you will need mentorship and targeted advising in this process. Otherwise, you're missing out on the benefit of those who can guide you appropriately, because it is going to be an individual circumstance. The core group of scholars with, again, mentoring and advising could potentially apply to 20 to 30 programs. This is presuming that they have reasonably competitive scores, excellent experiences, excellent recommendations. And with that 20 to 30 schools, they're likely to get anywhere from 10 to 15 interviews, right? And when you have that core level of excellence and you can interview well, if you rank ultimately, right, 10 to 15 schools, you have a high likelihood of matching. Now, with that said, what drives some of the challenge is, I think, a panic for scholars who have competitive credentials. There's a panic about, I'm not going to match. I have to get a job. And so as a result, they're applying to all these other programs, and the programs can see that there's not an actual effort to want to be at that program. So this goes back to where we started. You really have to look at, what are your goals? What are your preferences? So that can come through in your ERAS application and any other information that the program may require.
So with the shotgun approach, I can just imagine you possibly ranking a program that you're not too crazy about, attending. But what if you wind up, because that played in my mind, I was like, these other programs I'm not too crazy about, and what if I wind up going there?
It's happened. There have been many scholars who have matched the programs that they said, I would never want to go to that program. And I always ask the question, then why was it on your rank list? Why was it on your rank list if you had no intention of going there?
So you're saying don't rank it at all?
No, not at all. If it doesn't meet your preferences and it's not a location you would ever go to, it should not be on your rank list, because you may match there. So why put something on the rank list?
Very low on your rank list.
Let's just think about it. Why put something on the rank list if I really do not want to go there? Because the purpose of it on the rank list is that it's consideration for a match.
Right.
So now I match there, and now I'm upset and I'm angry, and I think that's not going to come through when I get there. I've had many scholars wind up transferring out of programs, being off cycle for a few years because they didn't think it through in a smart way. So we should only be ranking programs ultimately that we could say, whether it's the number 1 program or the number 20 program on our list, I can be happy at this program.
Right.
This program has more components that are going well than are not going well that I can be happy with. Not it has 7 things that are wrong with it, but 3 things that are good. It should always be more good than challenge, because that's what's going to allow you to have the best opportunity for an excellent training experience along with wellness.
So that's, we're closing out this episode, but I brought up a lot of the conversation around how many programs, that shotgun versus sniper, right? Because during my application season, I had a lot of interactions with other students who were applying for the psychiatry match. And I remember speaking with some of the international medical students, and the amount of programs they were applying to and the amount of money, like some of them was taking out loans,
Yes.
you know, incurring a heavy credit card debt to pay for, you know, upwards of 200 programs. And, you know, so, you know, is that the standard? Is that what every IMG student should be looking at? You know, is there a better way to navigate applying, you know, especially if you want to wind up in a, you know, residency program in the States, you might be in the Caribbean schools. What is the approach? Because I'm seeing, you know, $10,000 just, you know, to that's a very high cost to pay for applying.
So in my perspective, it's very unfortunate because it means there's either a lack of advising or inappropriate advising.
Okay.
Lack of advising or inappropriate advising, where a scholar is trying to apply to 200 programs, right? And doing all of that. What it says to me is that no one's worked with that valued international medical graduate to do the following 3 steps. The first thing we want to do is what I've already said. I need to know your 5 preferences. I'm going to start with that. And with those 5 preferences, we'll look at 20 to 30 schools. Now, once we look at those 20 to 30 schools that meet all your preferences, we need to do a deeper dive to see what has been the receptivity of those programs to outstanding international medical graduates. Most times that data is available. If it's not, you need to actually ask the program. But if it's available and we see that there is receptivity, it stays right on our list. If we can't get any information or they say, no, we've never taken international medical graduates, guess what? That school comes off our list and another one comes on. Because remember, we're doing 20 to 30, but there may be 31 through 40, but we're not interested in 31 through 40 now. We're trying to see if we can get a good 20 to 30, right?
Right.
So first, preferences. Second step is, what's the history with international medical graduates? Okay? And that will determine when they stay on the list. Then the third step is, of these programs, do they have slots that go unfilled in the match each year?
Right.
Because they may be more receptive, even though there's been no discussion about international medical graduates. Let's say there's been no discussion. We may be able to approach those programs because they have slots that have been unfilled. Is that an interest? So international medical graduates have great opportunities to match and do match with smart and strategic approaches. Sure, I could spend $10,000 to $15,000 and do a shotgun approach, and I could potentially match. But why do that when I can be strategic and work smart?
Yeah, that's good advice because, you know, again, I just there when I heard that I said that can't be the standard, you know.
It's not.
Like,
it is unfortunately, just like we talk about Q banks. And you have to do this Q bank if you want to do well on step 1 and step 2 CK. There are a lot of myths that are out in the, as you call it, the atmosphere, the ecosphere of what international medical graduates need to do to be successful. And they're actually myths, because with excellent advising and mentoring, with their excellent credentials, they can match the U.S. residencies. But it's a matter of being intentional about what we're doing and not buying into the fear of all the other things that happen around the match process.
So this brings us to our last discussion point, which is, what if I don't match, right?
Yes.
And so I mentioned it earlier, the SOAP, right? And
the Supplemental Opportunities Alternative Program.
Okay. And so, you know, that's a term that resonates with me because I had to participate in this SOAP. My first year, I did not match, right? And so I remember that experience. You know, you get the letter, Monday, to know whether or not you matched or not match.
That's correct.
You don't match, you know, every school has their system. How we did it was, you know, at Georgetown was, if you don't match, you get that email, like, you know, very soon after, saying a report to, you know, DML library. to the basement. The administration already has the area set up. There's faculty already there.
Reserved. Yep.
And it was, you know, it was quite an experience, because you go down there and then first and foremost, it's a shock because one, you didn't match, right? So that's already a psychological piece that you're having to deal with. Two, you get down into the area where everyone else didn't match and the SOAP is going on. And, you know, depending on how you take it, you know, I was pretty measured because I figured that it was coming, right? But other students who may not have, you know, thought that that was coming, you see, you know, very emotional responses from some people, crying because it could be, you know, a big thing, you know, to have to process in that moment, because the SOAP is it's very soon after you get the email. I mean, I probably within 10 minutes, you're saying, report here. Because at that point, then you're working with the different faculty members to go through that list. Like you said, with the IMG discussion, what programs and what specialties do not have spots filled? And are you comfortable with that? So I remember you're calling, you're looking at. So give us a little bit of a breakdown about what happens when a student does not match, what the SOAP, process is like from the administration side, and then what are some alternatives to SOAP? Because I didn't choose, to match into a different program. I chose a 5th-year option, which allowed me more time at the university to then be able to match into the specialty that I wanted to the next year. And so just give us a little bit of breakdown as we close out this season on what can students anticipate if they don't match, and then the next steps after that.
So every student is advised when they register under ERAS that you are also eligible for the SOAP, because you won't know whether you need the SOAP until that Monday when you find out whether you matched or not. If one matches, then it says you're no longer eligible for the SOAP because it's not relevant. If you don't match, then they say you're eligible for the SOAP, or Supplemental Opportunities Alternative Program. SOAP actually can be a great opportunity if we, again, work through the initial disappointment and think forward that I am going to be a graduating physician and I'm seeking postgraduate training. SOAP can be a great opportunity to actually secure a residency position. It requires excellent mentoring and advising, and it requires a level head. So I advise all students before the match to think through, what will I do if I don't match? What does the SOAP look like for me? And that's very important. And briefly, the SOAP has, in essence, 8 rounds, if you will, of consideration, where those who have not matched can enter through an electronic process to share your credentials, and a school, a program, can say, oh, I want to do a quick interview of you and potentially offer you a contract. This is a very short, brief version, right? Because a lot more involved, involves a lot of people. You want to have other people on hand. But here's the takeaway point you must consider. The first consideration is, will I try to secure a position in the specialty choice of my consideration? And that's challenging to do in the SOAP because it depends on the specialty.
Right.
If it's family medicine or internal medicine, you have more likelihood of doing that. Pediatrics. Psychiatry or surgical subspecialties or other, it's a little bit more challenging. So depending on the specialty, if a scholar believes, wow, that could be challenging, as you considered, they may say, I think I'll opt for a 5th year of medical education. I can do research and re-enter the match. So that's the first consideration. Am I considering a specialty that has the likelihood of securing a residency position through the SOAP? And that research can be done way before the match even starts. Lots of data on that through the AAMC portal. Lots of data. This is what I mean by being proactive and thinking things through. Now, if I make the decision, I want to go through the SOAP, now I have 2 other options. I can take what's called a preliminary year, right? And that can be in medicine or it can be in surgery. It just gives me clinical experience, but it's not necessarily in the specialty of my choice. I can re-enter the match the following year, or I can match into the specialty of my choice. Remember, that has some potential challenges depending on what it is. But what drives that process is whether or not you have any concerns about location, the type of program, an academic program, a community-based program, and other factors. Because there's only so many programs available in the SOAP.
Right.
So this is why I say to every scholar, I ask this question: are you willing to go anywhere in the country? And I'll say, tell me where you don't want to go, and be honest with me. I'll go anywhere. I'll say, you go to Tougaloo, Mississippi. Tougaloo, Mississippi, I love you. But there are a lot of people who may not want to go to Tougaloo, Mississippi. Maybe I'll say Albany, New York. We go north. Maybe I'll say parts of Iowa. Doesn't really matter where it is. Some people do not want to go to certain parts of the country. And I'll get two students. I'll get a student that's honest with me and a student that's not honest. The honest student will say, I only want to go to this area of the country. Okay, we know that. The student's not honest, I'll go anywhere.
Right.
And then something comes up and they decline it.
Right.
And when you decline it, there may not be another opportunity.
Right.
So the first thing we know about SOAP is you should know what area of the country I want to go, and will I say yes to the first opportunity? There may not be a second opportunity. The possibility of a second opportunity in SOAP once the first one is offered is less than 5%.
Yeah. So
95% chance of not matching after that. So those who go into the SOAP say, I'm ready to say yes. Yes to a prelim, or yes to my specialty of choice. And a third case is I'm even willing to consider a primary care specialty because I would be happy with that.
right.
But that third choice, we have to look at very carefully, because you may have had your heart set on X, and now you're saying, I'm willing to do family medicine, internal medicine. You really got to think that through.
Right. And so you gave a lot of different points of consideration. And mind you, this is a very truncated process.
Yes.
Like you're getting the email on Monday, you're receiving, the unfortunate news that you did not match. You're being requested to go to, wherever you need to go on campus to, participate in the match program. And shout out to all of, the faculty that was involved in my match process down in the basement of DML. Like, I vividly remember it because it was such an intense, it was so intense. On one hand, you're dealing with, the disappointment, not only yourself. Like I said, I was prepared for it, but then you're seeing classmates like bawling, crying. And then you see, you have the faculty who, they must have handpicked the faculty that's down there because everybody was so gentle and caring. Sure. And, so shout out to all the Georgetown faculty that handled that SOAP that year. But, it's a lot. It's very overwhelming, and these are major decisions in a very short amount of time. Which
is why proactive, and why FS is so important, because if you're a third-year medical student and you're watching this, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm confident I'm going to match.
Right.
But like the Secret Service, I'm going to prepare for a worst-case scenario because that's the smart thing to do.
Right.
If it never comes up, no problem.
Right.
That's the way we want it to be.
Anything up for chance.
But if it does come up, I'm ready to go into action.
Right.
And so most scholars don't have the benefit of this advising to intentionally prepare for a SOAP because they believe they're going to match. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Maybe that's why I was so measured going in, because we've already had that conversation going into SOAP. That was a very likely possibility that I was not going to match. And so going in, I listened to the different options, but I was pretty already on board with staying because, like you said, I was honest about, I'm very particular about where I'm going to go.
Exactly.
So I had a very strict list of where I wanted to go. And on top of that, I wanted to go into psychiatry.
Right.
And I was very confident that I could match into psychiatry. I knew the tweaks that needed to happen. And I thought that the 5th year option was better for me as opposed to, doing a prelim or, just going anywhere or matching into, a pediatric specialty, which, like they say, Marty Marr loved the kids. If you're a fan of the Martin show, Darren loved the kids, but I did not want to do pediatrics as my specialty. And to me, that was not going, I just wasn't going to entertain that because I wanted to, be happy. I wanted to feel fulfilled. That, and so, if it was completely out of range, then maybe I might have, some more things to talk about with you prior to going into that soap. But I think we pretty much knew what we was up against. I knew that there was a good chance that I could match the next year if that was, going to be the case. And, that's what wound up happening.
That's right. And so having a plan of action, being able to make decisive, sort of paths for yourself. I'll accept this. If it's not that, this is what I'm going to do. Or I'm taking the first train smoking, as I like to say. And there are scholars who say that's what I'm going to do, and that's what they do, and they're very happy. There are scholars who say, no, if I don't get this, I will do a 5th year.
Right.
I'm not going to go someplace, that I don't believe I could thrive or that would meet some of the other things I would like to contribute to, right? So that's a good point to close out on for all scholars, whether they're our U.S. graduates or valued international medical graduates, to be proactive not only for the ERAS, but also for the SOAP.
Right.
And if you don't have to exercise the option for the SOAP, that's absolutely wonderful. But if you do, you can work through that disappointment very quickly because you have a plan that you can execute on.
So that brings us to the close of season 4. The close
season
of
4.
Wow. This episode. And we, for everybody viewing, we wish you the best of luck in your application, your step 1, your step 2, your clinical, the pivot to your clinical years. And this is the reason why FS is so important because, you get to hear, real life anecdotes from myself who's gone through the medical journey and the different, I've probably experienced every hurdle that you could, think of in this medical journey. So these are some of the things that I could speak to. And then you also have an administrator who's been in medical education for, I don't want to age you.
That's right. Keep my hair cut short. Over 35 years.
Over 35 years, giving us some of the behind the scenes. And so this is the reason why we feel like FS is so valuable and that being proactive, because I didn't think about that being a factor as to why I might have been so measured going in, that preparedness, being proactive, because me and you talked throughout all of medical school. So, we knew when certain hurdles was coming up and, how it might manifest later on. So we always had a plan, and leaving nothing up for chance. So with that being said, we thank you for viewing and joining in for our season 4, where we talked about, closing out your medical school career. And then we will be back with season 5 soon. And so we look forward to seeing the scholars then.
That's right. See you in season 5 for FS.
Peace.